Hi everyone, my name is Keith James. I'm a senior immigration lawyer from Australia and I work at MJ Legal. We've helped countless migrants achieve their dream of permanent residency over the years, and the purpose of today's web series is to guide you as a skilled worker towards permanent residency using the Skilled Migration Program. Recently, the Australian Department of Home Affairs has opened its doors for anyone with a nominated occupation on the skilled occupation list to come and work in Australia indefinitely. In an unprecedented move, the department has increased their quotas, giving you an opportunity to secure an invitation for a skilled migration. Today, we are going to talk about all the pathways available for skilled migrants and what you have to do to make sure that the application you make gives you the best possible chance of migrating to Australia. There are two pathways that you can seek permanent residency from as a skilled worker. The Skilled Migration Program is one, and the Employer-Sponsored Permanent Residency Program is the other. Today's webinar will focus on the skilled migration pathways and its subclasses. There are, broadly speaking, three subclasses. The subclass 189 and subclass 190 are direct permanent residencies. If you receive an invitation and subsequently a visa under these two categories, you will be considered a permanent resident of Australia. However, if you receive an invitation and subsequently a visa for the subclass 491 program, you will receive a 5-year temporary residency visa that can be then converted into a permanent residency after living and working in regional Australia for 3 years and earning a minimum of $54,000 while holding a subclass 491 visa. So, why should you consider skilled migration these days? In the previous financial year, that's the financial year 2021 to 2022, there was around 79,000 visas only. However, in this financial year, the Australian government has significantly increased their skilled migration intake to almost 142,000 migrants. So the Australian migration calendar runs on the financial year calendar, which is from the 1st of July to the 30th of June. So on the end of 30th of June every year, the program resets and the government issues a new quota that outlines the amount of visas that they intend to issue for that particular year. So right now, there's a substantial amount of visas available, and it's a very good time for you to consider making an application. So if you look at the subclass 189 visa program alone, in August, there was around 12,000 visas that were issued. In October, there was around 10,000 visas that were issued. And in December 2022, there was about 35,000 visas that were issued. This is very encouraging signs if you are a prospective migrant, because it means that a lot of individuals who are already sitting in the system with very high levels of points have now already been invited, which means even if you have a lower number of points, it is quite likely that you may receive an invitation for skill migration if you make a strong application. So in addition to the subclass 189 visas, there's also been a lot of activity in the subclass 190 visa. So remember, the subclass 189 visa is permanent resident visa pursuant an invitation that you receive from the federal government of Australia. Whereas the subclass 190 visa is also a permanent residency visa, with the only difference being that you receive an invitation from a state government, and once you accept that invitation and receive a visa, you have to continue to live and work in that state of Australia for 2 years post receipt of the visa. So if you look at the state nomination visas for the subclass 190 alone, all the states cumulatively got almost 36,000 visas for this financial year. As of the 28th of February, they had only issued about 19,000 visas, which meant there's about another 16,000 visas left till the program closes in June 2023. So lots of opportunities, guys. Really focus on making a strong application to be able to grab it. Similarly to subclass 190, the subclass 491 is also administered through a state-sponsored pathway, and there was almost 25,000 visas that were allocated through this pathway to the states by the federal government. So if you are intending to live and work in a regional area of Australia, or if you're currently living and working in a regional area of Australia, this is a fantastic visa for you to consider because there's almost 14,000 spots left across all the states for the next couple of months. So if you haven't made your application already, hurry up. It's a perfect opportunity to get your permanent residence. Broadly speaking, the process of becoming a permanent resident as a skilled migrant can be summarized into 5 steps. Step 1 is obtaining a skill assessment. That is where you have both an education background and also a work experience background that will meet the level of skill and occupation required on the Australian skilled occupation list. So as a first step, you would make an application to the relevant skill assessing body to receive a certificate saying that you have a skill assessment in a particular occupation. The second option is to maximize your points on the Australian points test table. You need a minimum of 65, guys. Without that, you cannot actually proceed with making a skill migration application, but you can get much more points than 65. And I always recommend that my clients push to maximize their points. Step 3 is that you have to express an interest in migrating. So you have to tell the federal government that you are interested in seeking an invitation for skill migration under one of the 3 subclasses I mentioned earlier, which, to recap again, is the subclass 189, 190, and 491 visas. From there onwards, if the relevant state that you are currently residing in, or if you're an offshore applicant, the state that you hope to go and reside in is currently requiring a registration process with them, you should also submit an application for a registration of interest. Currently, states like Victoria and regional New South Wales specifically require you to make an expression of interest for you to be considered under their program for either the subclass 190 or 491 visa. The 5th step is to wait to receive an invitation and subsequently lodge a corresponding nomination visa application in response to the invitation that you receive from either the federal government or the state or territory government. So here I'm going to explore how a hypothetical client who's an accountant can actually seek permanent residency in Australia. So as an accountant, you can make a skill assessment to the skill assessing body. The accounting profession is on the medium to long-term strategic skill list. So the Australian skilled occupation list is broken into 3 parts: the medium to long-term list, the short-term list, and the regional list. If you are on the medium to long-term list, then then you will be eligible for all subclass 189, 190, and 491 visa applications. If you're on the short-term list, you're only eligible for the 190 and 491 visas, which are the state nominated visas. And if you're on the regional list, you will only be eligible for the 491 visa. So if you're an accountant, how do you get the skill assessment? First off, you need to have at least a bachelor's degree or higher in accountancy. Secondly, you need to score at least 7.0 in each band of IELTS. The equivalent score for the PTE exam is 65. Or you should have completed an Australian professional year program if you are an applicant who studied in Australia. So bachelor's degree plus IELTS 7.0 or a completed professional year will make you eligible to apply for skill assessment as an accountant. So our hypothetical client in this situation has completed a bachelor's accounting, but he hasn't done the professional year, nor has he actually completed his IELTS. So what I would recommend such an individual to do is to retake IELTS and try to get at least 7.0 in each band, or alternatively consider enrolling for the professional year program. So once you've made your application for skill migration, the next step is to wait for an outcome and then look at maximizing your points during that time. So right now, guys, it's taking around 10 plus weeks to get an outcome from most skill assessing bodies because they all are experiencing a surge in demand because everyone's trying to take advantage of the government's lenient policies on giving skill migration invitations these days. So in this case, our hypothetical client is about 36 years of age, and therefore they get about 25 points for their age. Assuming the client has only 6.0 in each band of IELTS, they get no points for their English language ability. Remember, if you have less than 6.0 in each band, you guys will not be eligible to apply for skill migration. Thirdly, our client in this case does not have any accounting experience overseas because we are considering them as somebody who came here right after their high school and continued to enroll into a bachelor's of accounting and completed it. They also have no experience in Australia because they are a recent graduate and therefore they don't get any points for work experience in Australia either. However, if they now start working while they're on their temporary residency visa and work for 1 year, they get 5 points. If they worked overseas, they need to work for at least 3 years before they're eligible to get 5 points. Next, they have not done the professional year. Had they done the professional year, they could get 5 extra points. And because they have a bachelor's of business administration or bachelor's of accounting, they get 15 points for that. They also get 5 points for studying for at least 2 years in Australia. Remember, guys, it's 92 weeks is what is counted as 2 years in Australia because the balance of the time is holiday period for university students. So our client is also married, so he does not get the 10 points that single applicants are enjoying recently. So all in all, he has about 45 points, which is far below the 65 points that are required. So let's explore how they can actually improve their points. The first thing to do would be to study hard and try and do your IELTS exam or your PTE exam. If you can get 8.0 in each band or 79 for IELTS, you can get up to 20 points. If you get 7.0 in each band or around 65 for PTE, you'll get 10 extra points. Remember, you can't claim both 20 points for 8.0 and another 10 points for 7.0. You can only claim either or depending on your points, depending on your results for your English language ability. The next thing they could consider doing is this exam called NATI, which is an interpretation and translation exam. And if you pass it, you get 5 points. If you are married, remember, guys, you won't get the 10 points that singles enjoy. So you're going to have to get your spouse to also do IELTS and try and get at least 6.0 in each band. Or alternatively, if they have an eligible occupation, you would also want to encourage them to get a skill assessment as well. So our client who currently had only 45 points, by doing the above, can actually maximize their points by another 15 to 30, depending on the outcome of doing all the things I have recommended above. So that will easily push them anywhere between 60 to 75 points. And then you remember that if nominated by a state for a subclass 190 visa, you can get 5 points. And if nominated by a state for a subclass 49 visa, you can get up to 15 points. So therefore, the client who has 45 points does not need to consider their dreams of migrating to Australia over. There are a lot of strategies to maximize your points and get at least 65 or more. The NATI exam, as I spoke about earlier, is a translation exam. So typically what happens is they will play a recording, which you have to translate from your native language, and you can nominate any language you want as long as it's a language that NATI is conducting tests for. So you can nominate your native language, they'll play your clip in the native language, you translate that into English, then they play you a recording in English, and you translate that into your native language. And if you pass, you get an extra 5 points. Crucially important 5 points. From there onwards, the next step is to express an interest. So assuming that you have got your skill assessment and made at least 65 points on the skilled occupation list, on the points table rather, you will be able to express an interest for one of these subclasses. Remember, you can only express an interest for the subclass 189 if your occupation is on the medium to long-term strategic skill list. So guys, to summarize, here is what you need to do. Step 1 is you need to ensure that you get a skill assessment. Step 2 is you need to maximize your points. 65 is the minimum, but you would always try to aim for much more than that because it's a competitive process. And thirdly, you would express an interest where you will tell the government, hey, I've got my skill assessment. I've got at least 65 points. I'm interested in migrating. Invite me. The government will look at your application and they'll decide if you're the right fit for them and at the right points level, and they may consider issuing you an invitation to apply for skill migration. In conclusion, guys, at MJ Legal, we are experts in all things immigration, and we really enjoy being partners in your journey towards permanent residency. So if you're already in Australia, if you're considering making an application for skill migration, we'd be delighted to have a chat with you. Call our office, set up a time with us, and let's start this journey together. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed our content, please leave us a Google review and also follow us for more content. Thank you.